Hello and welcome back to the Last Place Fantasy Football Podcast. I am joined today with just Josh.
Yep,
Ryan is doing adult things and
he's free.
married things. Yeah, so
He's
he's
free.
off. He will be back in the next one though. So next time you see Josh's beautiful face and beard, it will also be accompanied by Ryan's beautiful face and beard. So I don't have
Yeah.
uh yeah, a beard.
Uh working
One day.
working on it. Working on it.
No,
Neither
not
does
even.
Ryan. But
Whoa. Shots fired, 5
yeah,
seconds.
it's not
Josh.
5 seconds. But but but
Josh, tell him what we're talking about, man.
yeah, so again, Ryan's doing adult things, but we are happy for him. The man is he'll be good to go. He'll be back soon. But today we're gonna talk about, well, running backs and more specifically the rookie running backs and tight ends.
But
Uh,
most importantly,
low
it is
running
fantasy
backs.
football draft month.
Yep.
It is officially
Welcome to
starting.
rookie. Yeah. Welcome to rookie month.
Rookie month, let's go.
Yep.
Hopefully you haven't drafted all of your rookies yet because weird people are just now getting content out. So if
Yeah.
you've already drafted and like drafted right after the draft, big whoops on your part. I've seen some interesting people going in the first round.
I think I like it that we do our rookie drafts afterward. Oh, like we take some time away from the draft to do the rookie draft because that helps
Yeah.
us at least our stances I feel are more firm to be like, no, I really believe in this player even after like a month or 2 months post draft. Like if you
Essentially after like rookie camp, like after
exactly.
talking about what do we like from camp? Because I'll tell you what, I'm glad we didn't do the draft right afterwards. Because if we had Traylon Burks, would have been way higher last year. But
Yeah.
then you take a look into camp and you're like,
It's like, oh, this
oh,
yeah, like Traylon Burks probably could have been the first like you could have made an argument right after the draft because of opportunity.
but with how hyped he was too,
With how hyped as well. And then as soon as like some rookie reports came out, and then the more people thought about it, it's like no, 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 no. We gotta still put
wait a
let's
minute,
Garrett Wilson, Olave,
Drake London,
and Drake London are still much higher on the list.
right? But I think we're going to start with running
Yeah,
backs. So
we are
you ready to just
going
kick it off?
yeah, we're gonna start with running backs. By this point, you have probably seen our main big board. So you kind of know who's at the top, who's not on the list that you might be surprised about because we kind of just did a relative top 30. I think we should start off with by who's not on our main big board and just kind of give a kind of a quick rundown of like some of the things that we have major concerns about. So our last running back on the list is actually one is sorry as I bring up the list.
Abraham
No, so well, that's for the
or,
running backs, but Charbonnet
or
is technically our last one rated on our
ah, in terms of
main
our
big board.
players.
Yeah.
The people
But
that matter.
yeah, so the main running backs you might have thoughts about as far as rookie draft, we've not put on our list, and we'll about to give those reasons why. And because they are all in tier 4 for us, which is Ty J. Spears, Sean Tucker, Eric Gray, Deuce Vaughn, Dwayne McBride, Tank Bigsby, Kenny McIntosh, and I put Muhammad Ibrahim because I thought he was pretty good coming out. Apparently he still hasn't signed with the team, so that's so
Doesn't look great.
yeah, it doesn't look great. Not
Josh's
great,
first
Bob.
miss of the season, everybody. We knew it was coming
Yeah,
sooner rather than later.
yeah, and so I think we could just go down like each person and kind of just talk about it. So like Ty J. Spears, drafted to the Titans as a third round pick. I feel like the big reason why we didn't have it the list is have him on our list is because the Titans have King Henry. That's first reason. And two, they're going through such a transition and either it's going to be right now or within the next 3 years to where
Mhm.
I think Ty J Spears can get definitely lost in the shuffle to where as far as fantasy relevancy is not really there.
Right.
He would have to have a supernova like couple of weeks for him to be looked at as a long-term option. And so because of the long-term option, I didn't have him very high.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's fair. It's not that he's like a bad player, that I don't like the skill set that he could potentially bring. I mean, it would help a lot for Tajay Spears if the King gets traded, but
Even
you know,
then, Tyjae
even
Spears is not a bell cow. It's very dependent on receiver work for Tyjae Spears.
yeah, because here you go. He's 5'10", 201. So he's in the 18th percentile for weight, the 36th percentile for height. I mean, he has good hands, but I
Yeah.
mean, arm measurements, mid, arm span, mid, 40
He's
times
he's
4,
he's
5'4", mid.
for lack of a better word, he's a tiny guy, and that's
Yeah, he's a
something.
small
Yeah,
running back that doesn't have breakaway speed. He's shifty in space, but I mean, yeah, he's not who I'm taking.
yeah, me neither. So let's bring up a couple people here. Out of the list, I mean, Eric Gray is a fine pick, but it's Saquon's team un, until otherwise. Like that's to me, I don't see much there. Sean Tucker, apparently he fell all the way out of the draft, mainly due to medicals. I know the Bucks have always said they're very high on Rashad White, with Rashad White and Sean Tucker, two very different skill sets. And even then, they've talked about bringing Zeke in. So if that's the case, that is a committee I am not a fan of for either players. And Sean Tucker again, like Tajay Spears, has to be a supernova impact for him to kind of consistently stay on the roster. Probably my favorite pick, just because of opportunity, and I think the story behind it's really good, is Juice Vaughn. He was a 6th round pick to the Dallas Cowboys. His dad's a scout there, but make no mistake, if Tony
I saw that
Pollard's not, yeah, so he's the definition of tiny. He's Darren
the
Sproles.
179.
Yeah, he is the he is the
Oh, he's 5'5".
5. Yeah, he's the reincarnation
Whoa.
of of Darren Sproles. However, the tape, he plays a lot bigger than that. I think he can be very good and very serviceable, and he's one to keep your eye on just because we don't know fully the status of Tony
I
Pollard.
mean, yeah,
But
like his sophomore season rushed 1,400 yards and senior season rushed 1,400 yards.
yeah, so so he's one person who's in tier 4 for us right now. So we kind of have him in our average tier, but I would not be surprised if he shoots up just based off opportunity, because
Yeah, I mean, he helped
Ronald Jones
K-State.
doesn't scare me, and then Tony Pollard, who knows how the ankle is.
He did help K-State be relevant this last
Yeah,
football cycle, which is saying something.
yeah, it is very much saying something. And then Dwayne McBride, Tank Bigsby, Kenny McIntosh, depth, 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 and more depth.
Right.
Because everyone else there is like there's already an established guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of tough when like even Achain, in Miami, he's got competition.
Shit.
I mean, just as a little foreshadowing, Charbonnet has competition.
Vision. I
Even
mean,
Dwayne McBride is competition. Tank Bigsby
yeah.
competition. Um, Kendry Miller might be a shocker
So
um,
he's so
but
we're gonna get to him very quickly.
yeah, just
And
as
then
an
yeah,
overview,
just
but I
as
think
an
we should start.
overview.
We should
Yeah, let's
start
start.
with number one.
So, just before we start, we told you all of those guys are our tier 4. That's our average tier. Now, anything beforehand, just to kind of give everyone a quick rundown again. Tier 1 is our fantasy superstars. Tier 2 is our very good fantasy players. Tier 3 is our
Who could
good
potentially
fantasy,
make an
yeah,
impact?
potentially making an impact. Tier 3 is they're good, they're not great, but good
Maybe in a
still
couple years.
helps. Yeah, maybe in a couple years. Tier 4 is average, and then tier 5, we leave those. We actually they are shall not be named. But
We send them to the Blue Factory.
absolutely. So, but let's talk about our tier 1. We got two running backs in tier 1. Let's start with one who was picked with the 8th pick in the entire NFL draft, and that is Bijan Robinson from University of Texas, gets drafted to the Atlanta Falcons. As our resident Falcons fan, Ethan, you've had some time to think about the role of Bijan. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, honestly, I really don't know. Because it's Arthur Smith we're talking about, and he just does things that no one really plans for. Like last year, kind of going into the season, the talk was like, man, the Falcons O line is so bad, and now you drafted this rookie, and like if you play him, it's going to be awful, and this is like one of the worst teams in football. And then they came out and smashed everyone in the mouth. So now you're adding another threat into that. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how he's used. I definitely don't think he's going to be a bell cow. I see a lot of people like, oh, Bijan's the guy, like abandon ship on Algier. I would say go ahead and wait on that because there's things that Tyler Algier can do that Bijan isn't built for. I mean, he's 5'11", 215, so he's not a small guy, and he plays very aggressive. But you know, a lot of what he did at Texas was kind of running outside and waiting for blocks to develop and just kind of bursting.
A lot of wide zone, I would say.
Right. Right. A lot of wide zone, not, really running in between the tackle. Hey, go get me 3 yards. They want to set him up to be a home run threat.
Yeah, and I am so happy you mentioned that because I think that's the one thing where it's you immediately make that comparison, but the more you dive deep into it, you more you realize they're not really the same player at all. And I think Bijan's going to get used not very differently compared to what Texas did, but very differently compared to him and Algier.
Well,
And
I mean, yeah, like I think he's going to be in this. You're going to see him in the slot.
yeah, you're
You're
going to
going to
see him.
see him running multiple, simple, granted, but multiple different route trees.
I can totally see a 21 personnel. So, like, for example, Drake London, Matt Collins on the outside. You get John New, Kyle Pitts. And then you can mess around and have Bijan and Tyler Algier on the same field. I think
Right.
that I love its subtle versatility that the Falcons kind of went for. Because let's think about it. Pitts is your wide receiver tight end hybrid, even though he's listed as a tight end all the time. And then they got their actual tight end in Jonnu Smith, but who's still a really good receiver option. And now you get someone who's the running back wide receiver mold, but he's just a lot bigger with Bijan. And then you still have Algier who can run your power gap schemes really well.
Right.
It just lets your offense do more because that's more time in like install during the week where you go, well, you have to get ready for zone, you have to get ready for power, and you have to do all these different schemes to prepare during the week. Oh, by the
Right.
way, Bijan can catch the ball out of the backfield.
Well, what I think is really dangerous too is it's constantly rotating fresh legs.
In
So
depth. So
yeah,
I think if it everyone's thinking worst case scenario 50-50 timeshare. I'm in the mold of, you know what? That's actually better because the best ability is availability. And so like obviously like Derrick Henry is an athletic freak who can take all these carries and everyone imagine Algier kind of in that same role. But no, if you have two people split up, they're going to be available for 17 weeks. And I think Bijan is going to he still has the speed and he still has the quickness and cuts
I
to
mean,
where he could turn something out of nothing. And then
the
Algier is
speed
very much a power back.
the speed isn't that elite. I mean, it's
No,
good. It's not like he's slow. He doesn't have very good long
he
speed.
in the NFL, he will not be
He will
someone who
get caught.
takes it 80 yards. Yeah, he will get
Yes.
caught.
In the NFL, he will get caught, I think is the best way to say it. Not, that he's not a great, player and whatever, but that's what's gonna happen. Let's be
Yeah.
realistic here. He's not, man, like what a smashing pick, and like he's gonna do the same things he did in college. He's gonna run through all these people and be consistent in pass blocking. He's like, but he wasn't blocking, you know, De'Aaron Payne. He wasn't blocking some of these bigger guys, a Bosa or
Yeah.
anyone like that. He never played against somebody like that.
I just think, yeah, he never. especially in the Big 12, the closest he may have gone to was Bama, and even then, there's
Yeah.
a couple people on Bama, I'm like, it's not the Deron Payne of yesteryear,
Did they
but
play? Did they play Georgia?
no, they did not play Georgia. They played, Bama early in the year, and it
So the
was
best that he would have gotten would be Will Anderson.
yes, the best he would have seen would have been Will
Yeah,
Anderson.
because the last time they played was in 2019,
And
so that's not
e
relevant.
even then, I would say, Texas's O-line was alright. It's not going to be to the level that the Falcons' O-line is, and that's something
Oh,
I also
yeah.
wanna bring up, is, like,
Mhm.
everyone's kind of, like, glamorizing Bijan for what he did at UT, and then I go, "Hey, it may look just as good because with how good the
With how
Falcons'
good they
O-line
are.
is."
Yeah.
And I mean, here's like Arthur Smith is definitely a run game first kind of guy to where, oh, there's going to be a lot of creative things. So, personally, for me, he is still 101 no matter what, because the passing work's gonna be a bonus, but his quickness and his like sharp cuts and his vision's going to get better. It will adjust take a little bit of adjustment period, but his vision was so
Mhm.
good in college to where I can only see that getting better in the NFL. To where he is still going to be relevant. It may not be your 80-yard touchdowns, but man, he's going to be able to do 15 for like 135 because he's averaging like 5+ yards a carry.
I don't think he'll get that much volume. I think they're gonna split it up pretty decently.
Yeah,
I
I
even
think it's
say
closer to 50-50.
I expect Algier to get more just in terms of they're gonna be in a lot of short yardage situations, and I would rather have Tyler in to pick me up 3rd and 1 than Algier or than
Yeah,
Bijan.
yeah, and I think Bijan's gonna be used more in the passing games than Algier was, but
Yeah,
this is personally where I'm saying I think there's a legitimate chance because there's really no fullback for Atlanta. So I personally
I mean,
expect
it'll pretty much be Tyler or a tight
yeah,
end or like Johnny.
exactly. So, like, I personally expect it to where we're gonna see a lot of 2 running backs on the field. So,
But and
like,
that's the
the
thing is they're both
opportunities
so
will be
big
there.
though. They're both so big, they can both block for each other, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, and I do think Algier is going to get most of the work in the beginning of the year, and then once Bijan figures it out, it will be a wave of Bijan.
Yeah,
So
I
I
think
think
it'll be closer to 50-50, but I don't know.
yeah,
It also depends on how Algier takes it, I think. If he takes it as a challenge and he's very consistent, very good, I think they might keep him just because he's that dude. He really is. He showed
yeah,
it last year that he is just that dude. I don't
yeah.
expect them to abandon him anytime soon.
I think that would be the best problem to have because in that case, Bijan's super versatile and you can use him in different ways. Like
Mhm.
almost putting him in the Algier box is kind of disrespectful to his game because there's so much more he could do.
Well,
Even though
they do
Algier does his
2
box
completely
really
different
well.
things. Like, honestly, they do 2 completely different things. Because
Exactly.
Algier wants to run you over,
Yep.
and then Bijan wants to make a cut or follow a block and get in open space, and then
Yes.
get chippy. So, it's 2 different games, and that's what's so frustrating as a defensive coordinator is
That's so
you
much extra
plan
work you have to
on
do.
yes. So you plan on like, all right, awesome. We're going up against Algier. They're going to set up a lot of power, and we got to be really disciplined and watching the guards and where they go, and then fill in the hole. Well, then it's like if you have both of them out there at the same time, it's like, well, they can run power, they can run wide, they can pitch it, they can throw it, and then both running backs can block for each other. So go ahead and just take a guess, guys. Just try and read the field. And it's like,
Yeah, and that just opens
what are you going to do?
that's only going to make Ritter's job easier, especially
Right.
if you have 2 extremely good backs, and they you can do a bunch of things. So like so if you say even if you go Algiers the power guy and the zone guys Bijan, if you have them both on the same field, that means you can do both at the same time, and that keeps the guesswork. Sorry, that keeps the
On them.
guesswork on defensive coordinators. Like there's still a lot you have to worry
And
about, and that's not even including Pitts, Drake
yeah.
London, John New, Matt Collins, it's only going to make Ritter's life easier there.
And so that's the thing too, like, there's gonna be no excuse for Desmond Ritter this season, which comes with
Yeah.
its benefits and challenges. But, with all of the players, like, you gotta look at Drake, you gotta look at, Pitts, you gotta look at Bijan and Algier, you gotta look at and respect Cordell Patterson too if he's out there somewhere. So, no one's looking at Ritter like, "Oh, yeah, like, we've got to do this against Ritter." They don't have the luxury of that. There's
Yeah,
too much
you
on the
certainly
field
don't.
that you have to account for.
Yep. And that also, I think, makes Bijan's life easier as well. And that's going to help. And even if he's not getting the ball, if he's at least on the field, that's only going to help like shorten the learning curve. And
Yeah.
so that's where I think it's like again, Bijan's still our number one player for us. I think to the Falcons, I feel like we're way more optimistic than a lot of other people, even if it's a 50-50 split.
I mean, I think it's gonna be fine. I think it was praise due to the Falcons for, helping Ritter be as successful as possible because he needs the pressure off of him,
Yep.
because he's going to be a build. He's not gonna be elite as soon as they step onto the field. He's going to gain traction as the season goes on. So if his job is easy and all he needs to do is trust the guys around him and, help them to have confidence in him, that they should be in a good situation this year.
Yep. They definitely
And
should be.
with that, let's go on to the next one.
Let's go to the next guy because there is a lot of transition that happened with this, and that is Jahmyr Gibbs, who a lot of people were shocked that he was taken with the 12th pick. I am personally
I was
not
shocked.
shocked. I personally wasn't that, but
I
I am.
love Jahmyr Gibbs, but yeah, that was a bit of a shock.
Yeah, yeah. For me. The only reason why I'm not shocked is that you get one season under a pro style scheme under Bill O'Brien at Bama, and now with the Lions who have one heck of a creative offensive coordinator, and now you have a running back who, even though they've talked about this little hybrid with the running back receiver, he is still one play away from having an 80-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
And that talent usually gets picked way earlier than you think. I personally love it that it wasn't like the Raiders at 7 or something like that. Then I would have probably said too high, but at 12, based on the offensive talent left on the board, I totally understand the pick. I love the
I
pick.
mean,
I'm also way higher on Gibbs than everyone
JSN,
else.
JSN, they could have done it.
They could have, but I think that's them still believing. They still have Marvin Jones. Jameson Williams will come back eventually. And I maybe a third receiver messes it up. I also see JSN and Amon-Ra St. Brown kind of being stuck in the same role. And I think maybe
Mm,
that's the issue because they both excel in the slot. So, and I don't think you were going to take an Addison or a Quentin Johnson at 12. So, like Gibbs to
no,
me works in this situation.
it's not
So
the worst thing. It's
no.
not great though.
Uh, I mean, let's bring up the reason why we have him in tier one, largely because the news of, oh hey, it's a running back wide receiver hybrid. To me, that only confirms that it's like, hey,
Yeah.
they believe Gibbs is CMC Eckler, to where yeah, he's going to get some carries, but his threat is in as a wide receiver. Which, if you watched Alabama this past year, if things were stuck, they went to Gibbs. And
Yep.
like Bryce Young went to Gibbs. And I think that speaks volumes of having that expertise of like one, you know the position well enough to where you're doing it at Alabama as a transfer. That's a big key to number one. And then
Mhm.
number two, that the fact that usually, I mean, we've seen waves of wide receiver talent go to Bama, and they said no,
Mhm.
the running back's the better option here. And I
Right.
mean, I think he displayed it really well. Obviously, there is some coaching up to do, but that versatility, trading Swift, adding David Montgomery, I think the role is set for Gibbs in Detroit. to
Yeah.
where he will be a fantasy star, top 5 running back, book it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think he's gonna have the opportunity with it being him and Monty. You know, Monty has injury history, so there's a lot of opportunity to get him onto the field immediately as a wide receiver. Um, and I like him. I liked him at Bama. I liked the player. I was really hoping he was gonna go somewhere else, but I do think it'll work in Detroit. I just don't believe in Detroit, I guess is my bigger thing. But he's definitely a first round pick. He's definitely going to contribute in fantasy.
Yeah,
He should be taken in the top 4 picks.
without a doubt. I think especially within the top 4, you may have different positions of need, and I think Bryce Young, CJ Stroud could definitely fill that need,
Yeah, throw him somewhere.
but if you have a
Chase Sanders in there
quarterback
somewhere.
already, yeah, if you have a quarterback already, I'm okay with Jahmyr Gibbs at 102. Like, I really am. And I think just that versatility, that's the one thing the Lions didn't have, but last year, even with Swift, they do have now. If he can at least, if he stays healthy, I mean, the Lions could be very interesting this year. I mean, all the
Yeah,
time we are like, okay, tell me why it isn't going to be Bijan, but all along they were all in on Gibbs.
yeah, they sure were. And is it a chain time?
I think it is a chain time. I think, I mean, you already know why Bijan, Jameer Gibbs are tier 1. We're going to get into our tier 2, basically our very good fantasy players. Let's start with Devin Chain because you could not have put him in a perfect spot.
Yeah, dude, I loved him at A&M, and I think this is a good fit in the Dolphins as well, especially with what they're already doing in the run game. I
That
think
the
he's going to be
Shanahan
a nice
wide
compliment.
zone was built for
Yep,
Devin Chain.
yep. I mean, super fast guy, super elusive. He's going to have 2 great role models to learn from to further develop his game. You know, they can bring him in day 1 as a receiver to help them out. Like he's just a very promising guy, especially if they have any injuries in
Yep.
Miami.
And I mean, it's very possible. Thankfully, Jeff Wilson, Mozart really didn't get hurt last year, but based on past few years, yeah, you kind of have to prepare
Yeah,
for that.
especially
But
Mostert.
even
Especially Mostert.
especially Mozart, and they would lose a massive speed element if Mozart got hurt to where
But now
now Devin and Chain,
now
you have it.
Yep. So I think that was their insurance of like, all right, awesome. Really glad the wheels didn't fall off last season, but
Let's not hedge our
regression
bets
to the
here.
means. Yeah, regression to the means. Always. It is all about average. Okay. People operate on a comfortability, a fundamental middle, and you will always lower yourself or elevate yourself to whatever that average is. Okay. It is a universal fact.
Yep.
So if you have a guy whose average is he plays this amount of games before he deals with insert injury, that is always going to be the case. Don't know why. Don't ask me why. It is how life works.
Yeah.
So we're just going to operate under that notion.
Yeah, and that's a foundational piece of knowledge what Ethan just said as far as how we feel, especially when we look at our fantasy like rankings or
And it's
anything to that
always
matter.
true. And
Yeah,
it
it's very
is
true.
always true.
It
But
it
I love the
never
chain.
ceases
I
to
know you're
amaze
a little
me.
bit higher on him, so I'll let you kick off with whatever you have to say
So
about.
a chain, I actually was not that high on it, but granted, I think the only reason why I'm super high on him is now the fit. And I think if he were stuck in, like, for example, if he went to Atlanta at some point, definitely would
Mm,
not be
wouldn't
as
have
high
worked.
on him.
Yeah,
It's
wouldn't have
just
worked.
because I do think he's very much like stuck in a scheme to where it's like I think the
Yeah,
wide zone is the best way for him to maximize his possibilities compared to a Jameer Gibbs or Bijan to where it's like, they can be more scheme versatile than a chain can be. However,
yeah,
if a
dude.
chain gets to Miami, we have to talk about this because he will be lightning in a bottle, legitimately.
Yeah, I'm
And
excited for him.
now Miami, it's like good luck defending this track team. Like
Yeah,
absolutely good luck.
and I think in terms of like fantasy, it's not a surefire, he's not a tier 1 guy, but he's someone you can look out for on the waiver wire if you ever see an injury come through. He's someone you can throw on your taxi squad
Yeah.
and have hope for, like, there's a lot of potential there.
I will say the moment he gets over 10 carries, get him immediately
Yeah, or
because
close to it. I'd say even if he's getting, like, 8.
8 to 10, yeah, I think that's fair. Because the thing is like usually it's like you're gonna have that trial period, and a chain probably has a lot to learn. Even though that is
Yeah,
he came from a Jimbo Fisher scheme, that is very different compared to what McDaniel does.
right,
McDaniel slash Shanahan. So there will be an adjustment period, which luckily Jeff Wilson and Mozart are there.
right.
However, he is someone to look out for late in the year, personally, because I think the Dolphins may rely on him, especially if they're pushing for a playoff contention, but they want to save Jeff and Mozart. A chain could be used, especially if he figures it out. And to be honest, there's nothing stopping me from saying he won't figure it
Yeah,
out.
and with that, let's shift
Let's
over
go.
to someone I think that's gonna be a surprise.
So it probably is a surprise if you saw it in our big board, but I kid you not, this one I believe in my bones, and that is Chase Brown out of Illinois, gets drafted in the 5th round to the Cincinnati Bengals. Now,
So
All-Star
he's almost eerily similar to Joe Mixon's build,
yes, eerily similar. The
but he's an
Bengals
athletic freak,
yes, he's
his
insane.
measurements are
Like,
off the chart.
like I didn't so how I did is I watched Chase Brown first. I was like, "Alright, cool, I like it." And then I got to the measurables and went, "Wait, excuse me?"
Yeah, 5'10",
Yeah,
209, so he's a little bit lighter, but I mean, hands, huge.
hands, yeah, and
40.44, that's right where you need him to be, especially for like a 210-pound
and
back.
and you have to be a tough back to run in that. I think Illinois is bred by Lima, right? The
Yes.
old Wisconsin coach? Yeah, so you can't just be a regular dude. Like, you have to be kinda crazy and tough as nails to run in that scheme. And at worst, Chase Brown right now is the Samaje Perine role, which means he's relevant, like tier 3.
But I think he's gonna
But
take over.
I think he's the starting running back for the Cincinnati Bengals because they have to get cheaper there in order to pay
So
Jamar Chase, Burrow, and T. Higgins.
just as an understanding for his athleticism, this is where he ranked in comparison to other running backs. So his 40 time was in the 87th percentile. His
Solid,
10-yard drill was in the 83rd percentile. His
solid,
vertical was in the 96th percentile.
pretty stupid. That's crazy.
His broad jump was in the 93rd percentile, and his bench was
Yeah.
in the 89th percentile.
So a lot of your most important, like I would say, like the 10-yard split specifically, and even with like the long speed there, like he has it. He definitely has it. And I really do. I really like not only the opportunity, but the fit and the fact that he could do it all. Within that Cincy offense, I definitely think he's the heir apparent to Mixon. I think it's going to be sooner rather than later. I think Chase Brown is someone that you definitely have to look out for. I don't know if he'll ever hit tier 1 because of that offense that he is in, but make no
Mhm.
mistake, the floor might be tier 2. And if that's the case, sign me up.
Yeah, I mean, I think he'll only get better. What will be difficult for him is he's not going to be a very good pass blocking back, but
Yeah,
the rest of his skill set is good though for what they're going to need in Cincinnati.
yeah, so I think that's the one thing that's keeping them like that's keeping Mixon there because eh, he's
He's
definitely a way
aggressive.
better pass blocker
He's
than
aggressive.
Chase Brown right now. Yeah.
That's
And
the way to
even
put it.
and even then, between Samaje and Joe Mixon, it was always Samaje as the pass
Right.
blocker. So it's the I think they're definitely going to work with Chase Brown on the pass blocking part. That might be one thing, whether that's going to get schemed up to at least help him in that scenario. But I think everything else, I don't care with the fact that he's a 5th rounder. Honestly, if this class wasn't so good, he probably would have been a 3rd.
Tyler Algier was a fifth rounder.
Yeah, Tyler Algier was a 5th rounder, but I think he clearly has it. He will be a mainstay for the Bengals for at least his rookie contract.
Yeah, I think he's a good project for them. I'm not gonna say he's gonna step out and be the guy. It might take him a little bit to adjust, and he might not adjust. You never know. But I definitely think in terms of what they're used to in that offense, he can make an impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as impact, let's get to the next person because
Yes,
this might be
perfect
sooner than
transition.
late. It's going to be sooner than later. That's Kendre Miller coming out of TCU, drafted 8th pick in the 3rd round to the New Orleans Saints. Our big reason why we said he is someone to look out for is because Alvin Kamara's days are very numbered.
Yeah, I mean I think the right way to characterize him is he's just consistent.
Yeah.
He's got good size, he's got good speed, he's got good
Yep.
hands, he's just good at he's not like Bajan where he's elite at something, but he can use his side and speed really well. He can block
Yeah.
in the run. He can
He's very
catch the ball if you need him to.
he's kind of I'm not going to say they're the same player, but it's very much kind of like Brian Robinson to where it's like he's not elite
Yeah,
at anything, but he's good at everything.
yeah,
It
exactly.
and even though I mean Brian Robinson had more power to the game than Kendre Miller, but Kendre Miller, I mean, you've seen what they've done with that system and what like even Kamara has done to where it's like, okay, he's not going to be used like in just one role. And
Yeah.
because of that, and with the looming suspension of Alvin Kamara, I think we'll get that this year. I'd be shocked if it delayed on for another year. There's the
I mean, there hasn't
opportunities
been much
there.
promotion about it, but I really think it's coming soon.
Yeah, I would not be surprised. I mean, I feel like another interesting thing. We haven't even talked about the schedule release yet, but uh
Well, it's still fully out
obviously,
there,
yeah,
so
Saints didn't have any international games.
I wouldn't put them. But we do get
Yeah.
Jacksonville and Atlanta in London.
We also Jacksonville and Buffalo.
Yep. The
Uh,
Jacksonville has 2 London games because apparently they're like
yes.
a big
Yeah,
favorite
yeah,
in London.
because they always had the London games when they were
Yeah.
bad. They're built for it.
Jeez.
But, no,
I mean, yeah,
that's
the
gonna be a
UK
fun
was
year.
built on disappointment, so the Jags are the perfect team for them.
Yeah, no, that's gonna be a fun year with the Bills. That I like the games they picked this year. It's very good.
But
Um,
yeah, that's Kendra. There's
yeah,
not too much to talk about. He was part of the TCU elevation. He'll be very good. I think a good transition out from uh, from Alvin Kamara. But
yep.
yeah, let's go on to Rashawn.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah, so Kendrick Miller, tier 2. I think if you get him 2nd, 3rd round, you're gonna be just fine with him.
Oh, and quick note too, all these tier two guys are low tier two.
Yeah,
So essentially meaning things would have to fall into place in order for them to be fantasy contributors.
yeah, like there's when we explain that, we say as like scheme fit is a big reason. Like the
Yeah.
players themselves, like the scheme, they has to get married together, and thus the
We
opportunity
yeah,
is
I mean,
tough.
we like their skill. We like their skill. We like where they're at, or we like what could potentially happen with them
Yep,
based on like the
absolutely.
combination of the two. But
Absolutely. I think that's a great thing to remember because I totally forgot to include
all
that
right,
in the context.
we're
So
good.
let's go to our
So
next guy. Roshan Johnson, Bijan's backup. Bijan's number 2 gets drafted 4th round to the Bears. I know I am a lot higher on Roshan than maybe besides a couple people.
I
I
mean, the
tr-
the opportunity is there. I don't love him at face value, but he's a big dude. He's a
yeah.
physical dude. He has a lot of different skill sets, and again, Herbert's a guy that gets injured. Or
Yep.
yeah, Khalil Herbert gets injured. It's just he's going to miss a game or two. So it's
Yep.
all about what he does with that opportunity.
even then, I think Roshan is a even more like he's a different skill set. Like he is that power back to where
Yeah,
I think what they might do the whole uh like thunder and lightning like situation, like
yeah,
having Fields as your speed guy with like Herbert, and then I think they have Deonta Foreman as well. So it'd be
yeah.
Foreman and Roshan Johnson. Even Foreman has kind of dealt with like some injuries. Even like last year was a big year for him. But I definitely
Right.
think Roshan has like he's sneaky good. I think if Bijan wasn't at Texas, Roshan we'd be talking about Roshan a whole lot more.
Oh,
And so that
100%.
and he doesn't have the wear and tear that
Yeah,
Bijan
that's
does.
true. That's
And
true.
to where I think if we're talking Roshan Johnson potentially as a starting running back for the Chicago Bears, yeah, 100% that can happen.
So, I mean, worth noting, like, it is important because a lot of people don't understand this, but with running backs, they have a finite life in terms of how many hits that they've taken before they're done. So when we say wear and tear, we mean, and even Bijan surprisingly doesn't have that much
Yeah.
because he only really played his sophomore, junior year, and then now he's been drafted.
Yep.
And his freshman year, he didn't take that many hits.
Not
But
really.
ideally, in a running back, you want them to take over their junior, senior year and go off and
Yep.
not play before then, just to save their bodies because the hits add up so fast. Like if you look
Espe
at he
Yep.
he played all 4 years at Penn State, and then all of a sudden his second year or second or third year,
Boom,
you know,
torn
he
ACL.
gets that big, yep, boom, ACL gone. That's from that wear and tear playing 4 years college. And then I think it was two. I think it was his third year that he tore his ACL.
So second year was ACL, third year was the ankle. This past year was
That's what it was.
the fourth year, and then the non-exclusive tag was put on him.
So, but it adds up, man, and
I,
you got to be very, very careful.
I mean,
Um,
I think this is the perfect discussion to have this. I think the running back position overall is going through a committee transition to
yeah,
where you the workhorse running back of like yesteryear, like your Adrian Petersons, your even your Derrick Henrys to a certain extent, like that's a dying breed. And so like scheme versatility is such a bigger almost I would say talking point rather than the volume someone could get because you're not going to get the 20, 30 carries anymore. You have to be able to be like CMC and Eckler to go, no, I can catch passes out of the backfield. I can be a
mhm,
receiver if I truly wanted to. Or you're going to be stuck in this 50-50 timeshare to where RB1 and RB2 are going to have to be like really good players.
right. Well, because if you think about, I want to make 2 points really quickly.
Yeah, go
The
for it.
first one being data that has been out for the longest time has said what for fantasy. You know, you kind of see the relevancy drop off for wide receivers at 28, and
Yep.
you see the relevancy for running backs to drop off 24, 25. So
Yep.
you're telling me 2, 3 years in the league, you see that value drop off for them, some four, depending on how young they are. I mean, that's insane to think about. So the second point I want to make is when you have that committee approach, you know, number one, it's saving those hits so
Yep.
that you're setting them up for success in the NFL. I mean, you're prolonging their health,
Careers.
but also, yeah, in their careers. But it's like what I was talking about with Bijan in terms of if you can always have fresh legs, that's not going to do anything other than help out your team and your chances
Yeah,
at winning.
100%. And I mean, the best ability is availability. So the fact that there are
Right.
like two very capable backs, like in a lot of these situations, like Atlanta, Bajan Algier, two very capable backs. Lions, Montgomery, Jameer Gibbs. I mean, Dolphins, a chain, Jeff Wilson, and Mozart. The Bengals is kind of the most interesting one because that's Mixon, Chase Brown, potentially Travion Williams.
Yeah.
Saints gets interesting as well.
Mark
Uh,
Ingram,
yep,
Miller.
Ingram, Kendra Miller, and then we'll see what happens with Kamara. Bears, Khalil Herbert, Deonta Foreman, now Roshan Johnson. And like you have to have,
Commanders. Don't forget about them pesky Commanders.
yep, the pesky Commanders, Brian Robinson, I
And
mean,
Antonio Gibson.
Antonio Gibson, Ravens got Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins. The Patriots had at one point Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson, and so like the workhorse back is not sustainable.
Yeah.
So if they're
Well,
so
to give. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
so that's what so I mean like my final point would be like don't be afraid of the fact that like and there's another player we'll talk about here. Don't be afraid that there's two very capable running backs on that team. Is because instead of having elite game, like say an elite 10 games in the 17-game season, you're going to have a very good 17 games out of the players, and that's still going to put them in that elite category.
Right. So one last analogy before we go to the next back, but think of your running back like your axe when you're trying to cut down a tree. Instead of just swinging that thing and letting it dull, letting it blunt, letting it crack, and then going out and getting a new one in a few years, if you spend the time to take a couple swings and then stop, sharpen it, keep it fresh, keep it taken care of, and then go back to swinging it, one, you're going to be more efficient because it's fresh. Two, it's going to last longer because it's not dealing with the same amount of wear and tear that it has been. And that's what people, I think, haven't
Yeah.
realized until the last few years because they're like, man, I love this axe. Like, I'm just going to keep swinging it till I break it and then I'll go get a new one. But now they're realizing, man, like, actually, it's way more efficient for me to keep this thing fresh and tooled than to just constantly try and replace it.
Yeah, you don't run a Lamborghini into the ground.
Exactly. Exactly. So let's go to the next
Let's go to the next person because I think, speaking of our axe
one. Oh,
analogy,
I don't want to
this
talk
is
about him. This is all you. I don't like this
yeah.
guy.
So I just think it's a better scheme fit. It's 100% based on the scheme fit, and that's Israel Abanikanda, out of Pittsburgh to the Jets. I think the speed is, and you can't ignore it. Now, the reason why we have him low tier two is because of this, and that the fact is Brees Hall may not be ready by week one, and it's Brees Hall insurance essentially. So Abanikanda Brees Hall can do basically similar things. Brees Hall is 100% the better back. Let's not get that confused. But it does make Abanikanda much more capable of a
Potential.
backup running back than
Potential.
potentially than Michael Carter, LaMichael P. Ryan, or even Bam Knight. So like it's just more swings. I think the Jets were really upset that they lost that speed capability when
Mhm.
Brees Hall went down last year. And to where I think that there's a potential to keep four running backs on roster with Bam Knight and being like Michael Carter's backup, and then Abanikanda is Brees Hall's. So that's why I think Abanikanda 100% has to be like at least in the back of your mind. I wouldn't take him till like round 3, even round 4 of rookie mocks.
Yeah,
Like
towards the end. For sure.
yeah, I am not saying take him round 2 because I think Roshan, Kendre, Chase, and a chain are way better options. But
Yeah,
I
I
think
would say you're a
the
second rounder
potential's
guy.
there. Yeah, the
Your second rounds
potential's
with
there.
Payne, Chase Brown, and Kendra.
Yeah.
100%.
You could make an argument for Roshan, but I think that's based off
Right.
need.
No, no. You can't. Not yet.
And
Just with Deontay Foreman there essentially being in
yeah,
his role, he's got to fight for that job first.
yeah. And I would even say he I would say even Abanikanda, I think his day one impact is going to be more than our next guy, but long term impact when not our last tier 2 guy, I can see having more of an impact.
Yeah,
So
and let's get to it. So we got Zach Charbonnet.
from UCLA, drafted 21st pick in the second round to the Seattle Seahawks. And
He kind of
so
reminds me of like a James Conner.
yep. No, my only issue with Charbonnet is that he was in college for a while. He did bounce around a couple places. So I'm hoping the wear and tear is not bad, but he is a very good back, make no mistake. But more importantly, I think this speaks about Kenneth Walker. We all love Kenneth Walker. Like he's a tier 1 dude for us.
Well,
Um, or okay, Ethan.
no,
But we all, yeah.
I love Ken Walker.
I was about to say
I,
we had a whole
dude,
episode about this,
I kept
but
saying Kung Fu Kenny, like that's my guy. If I
yeah,
haven't made it clear enough.
yeah, Kung Fu Kenny. But let's make no mistake about Kenneth Walker. He was hurt beginning of the year and was hurt in the middle of the year, and he was hobbling by the end of the year. I think what this shows is just that I kind of put this as the player notes is don't be afraid of him splitting reps with Kenneth Walker because both being available by week 17 is the true victory here.
Yeah.
And I think so. Charbonnet is going to be involved. Yes, it's not the starter role that you imagine for either of them, but they're still going to be very good. They're still going to be very capable. That offense is extremely capable.
Well, if anything, it's more of a benefit to Ken Walker than it hurts
Yeah,
because what hurt him is he was the primary back, no breaks, no rest, and then he missed a couple games, which one hurt his fantasy value, two hurt him as a
yeah,
person, as a player in the NFL. So providing a little bit of help, a little bit of you know pain off of him to prolong his season is good for Ken Walker.
exactly. And because like the times Kenneth Walker really hurt your fantasy team was when he couldn't play. So if
Crazy how
he's
that
a
works.
yeah, crazy how that works. It's like you can't score if you can't play. And so that's where Charbonnet is still tier 2 for us. He's going to be involved. Yes, it may not be in the workhorse back consideration. That's okay. Workhorse back is dead. Let it stay dead
Yeah.
because now we're getting players for like for a longer period of time because they're not taking so many hits, and I'm personally okay with that. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it helps the game of football. It makes it more entertaining, and the players that you like at the running back position, it prolongs their life,
exactly,
and
and
that's a good thing.
that's the name of the game for running backs, honestly. And I think especially with this year, especially since a lot of teams are moving towards that 12 personnel, the running the ball is coming back 100%. And the more I think about it, the more is having two really good backs. Like I really think what separates there's two things to me that separates a good back, a great back, and an elite back. Like the big thing is scheme versatility, and the next thing is how good your O line is.
Mhm.
And I think with especially how deep this class is, for some of them, like a really good O line, like Falcons, Lions, Seahawks, even Dolphins to a certain extent. Like it only like are you going to be upset that they didn't score 20? Yeah, but 18's still really good.
Right. But let's get into tight ends quickly before
Yeah,
we
let's get into tight ends.
wrap
Speaking
up
of the
this.
12 personnel, we there is not much to talk about tight ends, honestly. This was deemed as one of the best tight end classes
Yeah,
within a decade, and I still agree with that notion. Now,
I
when it
agree as
comes
well.
to with fit and fantasy impact,
I
obviously
disagree
tight
so
ends,
much with the
yeah,
first one, but I let it slide because y'all agree for some reason. So I'll go ahead and let you talk
yeah,
about it.
also, yeah. So I think the fact we're going to start with Dalton Kincaid because I think this is where it gets very interesting. Dalton Kincaid was my number one tight end. Personally, for me, it's the closest thing to Kelsey that we have seen in a while. Um, and I'm not counting Kyle Pitts in that category because Kyle Pitts was freakier. Like that's
He's a call for the zone.
yeah, class of his own. But Kincaid, his ability to get open, like he really took over in like intermediate routes at Utah. The fact that the Bills traded up for him speaks volumes to what they want to do. And they want to
Yeah,
live
but
in 12 personnel the entire time because I think they
yes,
saw the three receivers really killed them. And and like
that's fair.
and because he has Gabe Davis, like obviously he had that. They say it's like, oh, he had the ankle sprain, but he kind of didn't get the job done. And then on
Yeah,
top of that, McKenzie didn't get the job done. So you're signing Cole Beasley in the middle of the season, and then we'll see what happens to Khalil Shakir. But Dalton Kincaid, I think, speaks like it that puts Gabe Davis and Khalil Shakir on notice, and then Knox and Dalton Kincaid Like Kincaid is way more the receiver than Dawson Knox is, to where Dalton Kincaid could be the slot guy, personally.
Yeah, I'm just worried about him becoming touchdown dependent,
I
and
think
that's why I have him lower for me personally, is only
yeah.
because of the fit. And
No,
Josh Allen
yeah.
has never been a tight end guy. Never.
He has never been a tight end guy, but he's
He'd rather
always been
run.
a yeah, he rather run, he rather rip it. Again, I've brought this up multiple episodes in the off season. I think the basically if you almost learn the lesson if something almost happens to you rather than something does happen to you.
Right.
That the Bills almost lost Josh Allen this year.
Yeah.
They almost did with the UCL injury, and I think they realized that they went, "Oh crap, we can't leave Josh Allen out to dry." And personally, they have to find ways to run the ball better to where they don't have to use Josh Allen, and to where
Right.
they can keep at least the play versatility to where a lot of teams were like, "We're just gonna go cover 2 until the cows come home." And so that's why I think the Kincaid pick is such a big deal. It doesn't take away from Diggs, but Kincaid might be touchdown dependent, but I think a lot of your intermediate stuff, especially with what like Cole Beasley was doing or Shakir or McKenzie, that's taken up by Kincaid now. And
Yeah.
to where that's why I think there is a small chance he gets relevant year 1, but especially year 2 is when he's gonna get noticeable, I think.
I mean, it's possible. We'll see what happens. It comes down to coaching for him. I think that because he has all the skills. It has
Yep.
nothing to do with talent. It has nothing to do with how he plays the game of football. Great player, great everything, great size, everything you want in a tight end.
Yep.
But it comes down to how do they use him?
Yep. It really does come down to what the Bills do with him in that regard.
But I would still take him at the end of the first round of your draft.
Yeah. Yeah. And we said end of first round, I think he's definitely in a really good spot there. Speaking of really good spots, let's talk about our highest tier
Yes,
2 tight end.
this is my
Because,
favorite
yeah,
guy.
I was about to say, Ethan, this is your guy. I let you have the floor.
Yeah. So our second guy that we have is Michael Mayer from Notre Dame. Not really elite anything when it comes to measurables. He's 6'4", 249. So a little bit smaller, but I mean, hands. Like here's a stat for you. The average QB rating when Michael Mayer was targeted at Notre Dame was 106.7. That's the kind of talent that he brings to your team as a receiver.
He's a
So
security blanket.
exactly. So he honestly reminds me more of that like kind of Kelsey role with all the tight ends than Kincaid does, just because you can always trust him that he's going to make a play if you throw to him and that he's going to catch the ball. I trust Michael Mayer. So he's going to a system where he has a QB in Jimmy Garoppolo that likes tight ends. You know, he
Yep.
just had one in George Kittle. Um,
But yeah.
and that doesn't have a lot of receiver help. So he's going to get work, especially if he can
Well,
prove that he can be
I
trusted.
I mean, there's still receivers there in Devontae Adams, like Jacoby
Yeah,
Myers and
exactly.
Hunter Renfro. Like,
Exactly. In Devontae Adams and
yeah,
now
in
Mike.
the but the thing is I think the Raiders are really going to live in 11 personnel this year. And
Yeah.
largely because I do think the scheme kind of fits. I mean, Jacoby Myers, I think, is a way better blocker than people realize, to where it's like they
Oh yeah,
can get away. They can get away
he's
with 11 personnel.
he's a big guy for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I think Michael Mayer. To me, Michael Mayer is just the new age Tyler Eifert, or Kyle
Mhm.
Rudolph. They kind of give that kind of mold of a
Boo.
player, but
Boo.
it's still serviceable. It's still it. He's still going to get the work done. He
Just
will
wait.
be out on the field. Like
Just
so,
wait.
it's like he I think it's there. Like I definitely think he is a very capable tight end, and to where it goes, oh hey, I have a solid contributor each and every week. It may not like take the roof off of things, but you know what? At a position that has been so I guess futile outside of Kelsey and the top 5 like tight ends, man, if you get 8 to 10 points every game out of Michael Mayer, that's a win in my book. That's tier 2 in my book.
He'll get more. I see him
I
as another Mark Andrews.
Ah, you
I
Hold
make
on,
too much
I got
sense.
yeah, no,
I
yeah,
make too much sense,
because
Josh. That's my problem.
Andrews was a lot bigger at, like, when he was at Oklahoma. Yeah, you know what? I can see it. I can see it. I think that's definitely his ceiling.
Yes, for sure.
That's definitely the ceiling.
With
But
that,
yeah, I mean, Michael Mayer is still tight end 2 for us. So, you make no
one
mistake, he is
one
still legit.
one Sam Laporta, the
Yeah,
only relevant offensive player for Iowa.
yeah. Yeah, so let's talk about Sam Laporta, drafted before Mayer, before Darnell Washington. He was the
Surprising.
second yeah, shockingly the second tight end taken. I think his like, I think a lot of people were thinking he'd go down because of injury, if that's right. I might have that wrong. I'll have that double checked and put in the comments there. But, for especially with, Sam Laporta drafted to the Lions, essentially, this is you replace an Iowa tight end with an Iowa tight
No,
end. But
they have a thing, and we respect their preference.
yeah, they have a type. Uh, I think he'll be good. The opportunity is kinda there. I think he can definitely be better than Brock Wright.
Yeah.
I don't think he's like Mayor Kincaid to where
Mhm.
either as far as consistency or as far like, he's gonna be touchdown dependent, in my opinion.
For me, he's like you have the size, you have the skills, now show me something.
Exactly.
That's pretty much how I feel
100
about him.
100%. I am in full agreement there.
Like, it's not like this needs to happen or that needs to happen or this coaching or this or what. No, like you have it all. You're in a good spot. You're with a QB that
Now just do it.
somewhat target Hawkinson. Still do something. And that's all
Exactly.
I really have to say about him. I can't really predict anything
It
because,
is hard to predict
you
him,
know,
especially with the other weapons on this team.
right. But
But
I think the potential is there. He's a
yeah,
good middle of the second round guy, I would say.
yep, it's definitely why we have him in the second round. The next guy is interesting. We put him at high tier 2. I think we might be higher on him, but I definitely think the opportunity is the driving force behind that. And that is Luke Musgrave out of Oregon State. Drafted with the 11th pick in the second round, so that
To
would be
one Green Bay.
42 to Green
One
Bay,
one Green
who
Bay Jordan loves.
yeah, yeah. So I think the opportunities there. The reason why he wouldn't be tier 1 for us, I think, is because we don't know what Jordan Love is. And that's just a big question because if Jordan Love is who the Packers think he is, then he can shoot way up. However, if Jordan Love is not who he is, it gets rough out here.
Only thing though, his knee injury in 2022.
Yes,
That
so
is the only thing.
he will have to heal up. Hopefully, he's ready by training camp. Luke Musgrave, he's a very good receiving threat. He is essentially Mike Gesicki to me. To whereas he is a receiving threat, you're not going to get much in the run game. But hey, I mean, the Packers need a tight end presence, and
Yeah.
I think
He's
when it
just
comes to fantasy, he's better than the other Green Bay option right now.
yeah, he's just inexperienced. So
Yes,
once he gets the reps, I think the talent's there. He's just got to stay healthy.
exactly. It's all about health for him. I think that's it on Luke
Yeah.
Musgrave.
Get us to the
So let's
next
go
one.
with our only low tier two,
Shoemaker.
Schoonmaker, Luke Schoonmaker from
Shoemaker.
University of Michigan, drafted in the second round to the Dallas Cowboys.
A great
Uh,
fit.
Great
What a
fit.
great fit. A great
Exactly.
opportunity.
He's going to be a good blocker. I mean, obviously Michigan, you kind of have to be a good blocker, but also the Cowboys, you have to be a good blocker at tight end to even get onto the field. And I think he's going to be good compared to Jake Ferguson and Hendershot. I just think he's a very capable tight end. I honestly, he might have the same trajectory as a Schultz and a Blake Jarwin, to where like randomly one year you go, dang, he's tight end 5.
Actually, this guy's okay.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think it's a really good fit for him, which is why we have him in our tier 2 of tight ends.
Yeah, I like him. He's going to have the opportunity to do it. And if he doesn't do it, then he sucks. And it's his fault in the first place.
we're gonna copy and paste that for a lot of players. Um, it's just that one that one line. That is his fault. That is his fault. And
If you
let's
suck,
let's
it's your
go.
fault.
Yeah, who would have thought? No, just let's go to tier 3 here. Darnell Washington.
Okay,
Personally,
hold on. Before we get attacked, before we get attacked,
before we get attacked.
Josh, please give context to why he's tier 3.
Okay, I'm going to start off with just a comparison. Beginning of before the draft started,
Wait, read the
Darnell
PR
Washington.
statement. Read
Yeah.
the PR statement.
Okay, we here at the Last Place Fantasy Football Podcast will now provide context as to why Darnell Washington is tier 3, end quote.
We love Darnell
Darnell
Washington.
Washington. We believe in this phrase, draft aliens and prosper. The Steelers did that in round 3.
In foil.
Yep. So, unfortunately, here's the big reason why he's in tier 3. Pittsburgh is a weird spot because Freiermuth is there.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, I think he's going to be used as the sixth lineman more than as a receiver. The potential is he is the closest thing to Gronk that we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And unfortunately, I am nervous I don't know how it's going to fit because they have Pickens, Deontay Johnson, Najee's still there. So Najee's like he is sending a bouquet of like flowers and chocolate to Darnell Washington because Najee is going to be thanking him.
Please pick
But
up a.
so they add essentially a sixth lineman. I think they could legitimately live in 12 personnel all day with Najee as the back, Deontay, and Pickens, along with now Freiermuth and Darnell Washington as your tight ends. My big issue about this is not Darnell Washington. My big issue about this is one Matt Canada, one Pat Freiermuth, and one Kenny Pickett. Largely because, like, Freiermuth last year would have points where he was invisible. Like, he would not get looked at until 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and then he'll end with 3 catches for 60 yards, and then you're feeling good about it. And I have a concern, like, to where if he was getting barely looked at, what is happening to Darnell Washington now? It almost like he's going to get barely looked at. So unfortunately, the opportunities kind of got cut in half as soon as I saw that the Steelers took him.
Right.
But I
But the
think they'll
potential's
find
still there.
the potential's still very there. Darnell
Yeah.
Washington, personally, at pre-draft was my tight end too.
He's
And
gonna have a role,
yeah,
and if he plays the love of the game role, I think they involve him. But
yes,
continue.
100%. He may be tight end dependent for a while, but personally, I think he, he can show them it's like, hey, I'm a way better tight end. And I
Well,
would
I mean,
not be surprised to see him like as a starting tight end.
yeah,
It's
he's
just
big and he
opportunity.
plays big, and
Yes.
that's an elite trait.
You can't
You
teach
don't
that.
need to have speed if you play big when you're a big guy. And it sounds so simple and so like, almost goofy to say, but there's so many big tight ends that don't play like they're a big guy. And that
Yeah.
is not a problem for him.
Not the problem for him at all. Like he's literally 6'7", 270.
Yeah.
He is an
So
offensive lineman, but also
play the
has
love of
the
the
hands
game
of a
route
receiver.
and you'll get your chance. Draft and taxi.
Yep. He is what I could not agree with you more, Ethan. He is a draft and taxi. Honestly, if he went anywhere else, I think he would have been a round 2 guy, but this is a
Yeah.
round 3, round 4 person for me in rookie
Unless they're just
drafts.
like, you know what? We don't like Muth.
Yeah,
See ya.
it could be that too. Like it legitimately could be that.
Yeah.
But as far as this year, it looks like it's going to be 12 personnel all day, every day.
But with that, we made it.
We have one. Wait, we got one more.
Oh no. Okay, go ahead. You do your thing.
We got the only reason he is our last tier 3 tight end, and that's Cameron Laptu. from Alabama, drafted in the 3rd round to the 49ers. I mean, this is essentially just he may not have an impact whatsoever this year as long as George Kittle stays healthy,
Mhm.
but he might be serviceable if George Kittle gets hurt.
Okay, that's fair.
And with that, Ethan, I think
We
that's
made
it.
it.
We
We
have
made
made
it.
it.
Everyone take a deep breath. This is just the start.
Yep,
We're what, one stage of 3 into this thing, so
yep.
there's more to come. Just take everything with a grain of salt. There's a lot of potential, and it kinda comes down to who you believe in the most, I think.
Yeah, I think it also comes down in, like, which coaching you believe in the most too. It's why for
That's very
personally
fair.
for me, I've always focused on coaching a lot because then if you understand the coaching, you understand who is going to get those opportunities.
Well, yeah, I mean, last year, look at who we were talking about, the player we liked the most for coaching, Saquon Barkley.
Yep,
And what did Saquon Barkley do again last year?
the RB5.
Yeah, incredibly relevant, but he played bigger than that.
Yeah,
Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I think it was crazy because I looked at the percentages for most playoff teams, and basically everyone had Saquon.
yeah,
Like, if you had Saquon last year, you were in the playoffs, you were sitting pretty. It was like him and JJ and Josh Allen. If
yep,
you had one of those 3, you were chilling. I think 4th was Eckler.
yeah. It was Eckler, and then I think a lot of the other teams, like, caught CMC on the whim.
Yeah, I know CMC was up there, and Josh Jacobs was up there.
And I think
Josh Jacobs
yeah.
was lower because his average wasn't as good, but,
Yeah,
some of the boom
but yeah, his
performances.
boom performances were
Oh,
otherworldly
yeah,
last
when he
year.
boomed, it was Sonic.
Yes, 100%.
That's merch right there for you, Josh.
Yep. Writing it down.
When he boomed, yep. Alright, anyways, Josh, drop the social.
Yeah, so you can find all of our info, all of our socials at Last Place FB, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube and TikTok. So we're going to be putting out a bunch of different content specifically on these players because this was a good class, honestly. So you could find all of us there. Feel free to leave a comment about any trade ideas, rookie draft ideas. I don't care if you even disagree with our takes. We just love the discussion. We
Tell us.
love having those back and forth. Our favorite one was the fact of a dude
David
saying,
Bell?
yeah, like the guy saying, I don't like what y'all thought of the Bears trade because of this, and that. I'll take those comments all day, any day. I love having that. We love having that discussion of talking about different players and different teams, so on and so forth.
Well, in the last rookie class says David Bell, but, what did he do again?
To be determined. To be determined.
I'm sorry, I'm still waiting.
Yeah, we're still waiting. He was not a second
I
round.
digress.
Yeah, but I digress. This is your co-host Josh, along with your co-host Ethan.
Never forget,
Never forget.
sometimes you're right, sometimes you're Ryan, even when he's not here. We'll see
Have
you
a
in the
good
next.
one, everybody. We will see y'all for the next Rookie Month episode.
Oh, wait, the PR script. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you for joining. End quote. We will now take your questions.
Are there any more questions? No questions.
Have a good one, everybody.